So at that time, Preston really got interested in the thing and started pursuing it. And you know, Preston, you just make a few comments about how some of the follow-up and some of the things that you did to get the ball rolling. And I had talked to Randy McGee, who used to work at Dobbs and built 2 or 3 sand buggies, dune buggies. Worked for Jimmy Dobbs for quite a while, fabricating, could do the aluminum work, could do the build a chassis, and he come in here all the time to where we had a good relationship. He sounded interested, and we ended up getting together saying that he could get it built, and he thought possibly before the Cackle Fest this year at Bowling Green, which was the middle of June. And that's where we started on it. And in the meantime, let Preston talk a little bit about that time we got going, got the tubing in here. We had about 85 days to put this project together. We pulled a lot of strings, got a lot of help from a lot of people. They did a good job. They performed, they produced, and did what they said they would do in the time frame that we had to do it. We completed this project on June the 14th, about 10 o'clock that night. We had the car loaded and we left the next day on the 15th, on Thursday morning, to take it to Bowling Green, and the car looked beautiful. Cosmo worked 6 days on the letter. Eddie Van Story did a fabulous job of doing the paint work. Randy and James did a great job on finishing the details on it. We got it together, fired it up, and it's amazing how it turned out. T.C. Lemon, who works for Gartlett and has for years, gave us so many drawings, and I put together a deal with Gartlett to let me take measurements off of the Gary Cochran SPE car that's at the museum, and John Weavy's car, which is also an SPE car that was at the museum. And TC measured, marked, sent sketches, diagrams all the time for about a full month of sending prints of what this was and how wide this was, and it worked out real good. And he had one thing that he was worried about, that he told me that all the specifications were the original specifications, but it would have to coincide with the size of the driver at the time that the specifications were made. So I don't know about that. Preston had to tell you about that.
I'm gonna have to add this. I'm gonna tell you about how this story went. You know, I was out at Rip's house helping him build a motor. He's restoring the Stevens Inventable fueler, and we were out there, and I was building the motor for him. And some guy named George was the one that said, "Well, I know who bought that car." And then Will Banks said, "Well, I got his number in the phone. It's 10:30 on Thursday night." So Will Banks, I didn't even ask him to do it. He just called the guy up at 10:30 Thursday night, and he said, "Don, this is Eddie Wilbanks. I got somebody I want to talk to you." Well, I told him who I was. I said, "I don't know whether you know who I am." "Well, I'm Preston Davis." He said, "Oh, I know who you are. You drove Raymond's car." I said, "Well, I hear you might have some parts to that car." He said, "Yeah." He said, "I bought the car, and I cut everything off of it I wanted, and then I sold what was left, which just was the bare chassis, to Sam Toon." Well, the first thing I asked him, because the trademark of an SPE car is that front axle, and I said, "Well, do you have the front axle?" He said, "Yeah, I've got it on a little car down here." Well, Don owns, the boy's name is Don Schenzel. He owns a little speed shop, South Haven, right on the corner of State Line Road and 51. Well, this was Thursday night, and I kind of got fired up about it. So Friday morning, I drove down there, and the first thing I saw when I drove in the driveway was a little junior fueler sitting out there. And I drove it in from the front of the car, and I looked at the axle, and I knew it wasn't an SPE axle. But anyway, I parked the truck and got out and walked over and was admiring the car. It was a nice car. And he walked up and he said, "You're Preston Davis, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." Kind of like what Raymond said a while ago. "Well, I remember you a little bit thinner." Well, I have gained a little weight in 40 years. But I said, "This is a nice car, but that's not an SPE axle." He said, "Oh no, it's on my little car in my backyard." He said, "I live 5 minutes away. Do you want to go see it?" I said, "Sure." Well, we drive over to his house. And when I walked around the corner of the house, there was a little yellow and black trailer that had about a 96-inch wheelbase dragster with a 900 Suzuki motor in it. But the first thing that caught my eye was the axle, and I knew right then it was our axle. And I walked up. The only thing that was covered up on the car was that Suzuki motor, and he had Visqueen over it. And I looked at the car, I was trying to stay calm, and looked at the axle. It was a little bit rusty and had a ding or two in it. And we got to talking about the radius rods and the steering wheel and the seat, and I looked at the seat, and sure enough the Siemens sticker was there. And I said, "Would you entertain the thought of selling him this stuff?" And he said, "No." Boy, when he said that, my heart hit the ground. And he said, "But I know how important this is, and I know what kind of history I've got sitting here." And he said, "Y'all can take this little car over to Raymond's shop, and you can cut anything off of it you want to that was part of that car. Just replace it with something that'll run." Well, I called Joe over at Raymond's shop, and I told Joe about it. I said, "Now don't call the old man and tell him that." Well, this was middle of the day Friday, but I just couldn't keep it from him much longer. About 2 hours later, I called Raymond. And I said, "Raymond, what are you doing?" He said, "Well, I just got through eating," and I'm not going to tell you what else he said he was doing, but he said, "What do you want?" I said, "I found the front end of the car." And I said, "It's down at South Haven, Mississippi." So for 35 to 40 years, it's been all over the country, but it has wound up 15 miles away from the house. So we brought the car over here, and I'm going to tell you, a lot of people have helped us put this car together. It's been a hard thrashing, but...
How many hours do you think you spent working on it?
Well, I spent a lot more hours here at Raymond's shop than I have working her at home with my wife. A month ago, I came in one night about 2 o'clock, and of course I had a little dirt on my knees. I was too tired to take a shower. I washed my knees, I washed my hands, I got in the bed. I thought she was asleep, but she turned over and she said, "You know what? You smell like you did 40 years ago." I said, "Boy, don't it smell good?" But my wife, man, nobody has a better wife. She has put up with me for 40-something years, but Jane and Frida had put up with Raymond and I working on this car, and I'm going to tell you that it couldn't have been put together without the help of a lot of friends, and Raymond especially. Raymond did his part. He knows a lot of people all over the country, and the people all over the country have helped us. And it looked like there for a couple of weeks that we were going to be shaving it close, and I had some guy ask me, "Well, when do you think you're going to have it together?" And I told him probably midnight the 15th. Well, I didn't miss it very far.
Well, also, Preston, over the years, I've been loyal to a lot of vendors that we have done business with.